Sweden is saying we want to take away the he and the she, or these gender roles, so that people can be comfortable finding out who and what it is that they are. And the example was, instead of he or she, we're going to have the pronoun hen. And they even had stories out there that suggested we don't know what the gender of the child is, but it's just referred to as hen throughout. And the idea is that a female could be anything she wants to be, just like a guy can be anything that he wants to be without these kinds of gender roles. Read the article and you'll get a little bit of the controversy there, although what I've said to some folks was very controversial as well. Sex offender, that was the one we were talking about with Woolfolk. And yes, Jim Crow laws. Do you remember those? What were Jim Crow laws an example of?
The race discrimination.
Yeah, what ideology? Conservatives. The idea that you want to preserve or conserve the existing order. And the Jim Crow laws did that. For this one, have an idea of some of the laws. And if you remember in the classes, in some of the laws we talked about the segregated billiards tables. White and black kids could not play baseball, not at the same field, but within 2 blocks of each other. I believe it said that male barbers could not cut the hair of white women. And it went on and on with some of those, but it's really just a list of some of the good old Jim Crow laws that were implemented in the aftermath of the Civil War. And then the last one up here was the traffic. Traffic was the example of liberal. Do you remember the traffic article?
Oh, yeah. The one in California.
Yeah, what about in California?
They were trying to build an underground highway.
Yes.
That could go like 15 miles to reduce the traffic.
Yes.
In Los Angeles.
Yes.
But the only problem was that it's like right next to a fault line.
Yes.
So it was controversial because what happens if the tunnel breaks and then, well, I mean, the traffic problem's solved, but.
Yes. Because it would kill all those people.
Right.
Go ahead, Amanda.
No, they were worried about that. No, he said it. I wasn't saying anything.
We all, and the camera's going to catch it. I mean, I'm not going to edit this out. Okay, as you look at this, they had a plan to build a tunnel, and I think it was like a 15-mile tunnel. It was going to be one of the longest in the world. It was going to cost $9 billion over 25 years. Now, the trick on this is that the roads that were basically running outside of LA already had significantly more traffic than what they could accommodate. So the idea is we're going to drill through these mountains, we're going to create this long tunnel, we're going to divert this traffic, and ultimately this is going to ease some of the congestion. It's not like we can build more roads because the mountains are so very, very tight. Well, the problem with this was that it was basically within a few miles of a fault line. And the fault line had not had an earthquake, if you remember, in 100 years. And there's 2 ways of looking at that. One is, well, maybe it's pretty stable, or 2 is, it's overdue for another one. And the one that they had previously was like a 5 or a 6, if I'm not mistaken. Bottom line on this, conservatives believe in preserving or conserving what exists. Liberals believe the glass is half full and the government can be a positive change, positive force for change. So they're basically saying, hey, we're going to use our scientists, we're going to use our resources, we can solve this traffic problem. To be honest with you, Jim Crow and building a tunnel on a fault line are both pretty stupid ideas. And I guess my point in giving you these articles was it doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative, you both can have some really bad ideas, even though you're trying to look at things from completely different perspectives. Political culture, and I'll go fairly brief with this. I mentioned to you before, remove Korematsu versus the United States. Remove Korematsu versus the United States. Sleeping dogs, y'all remember the slogan, right? Mm-hmm. What was sleeping dogs? What's that? Is that Amanda talking, or am I just hearing things again?
I think it's Amanda.
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
No, it was something like don't wake up the sleeping dog.
Let sleeping dogs lie.
Let the sleeping dog lie. American political culture basically says that when the American people get angry, they get active and they begin to vote. And there's a lot of folks that would say, let's just let the sleeping dogs lie. And what I mean by let's just let the sleeping dogs lie is, okay, if American people aren't awake yet, then in fact, let them sleep, let them be happy, let them not participate. Because when the dog wakes up, it's going to show its teeth. And when they start to participate, they're probably going to be against a lot of things. When you look at the '08 election with Obama, People slept through the Bush years, let's be honest. They definitely slept through or with the Clinton years. But when you look at the Bush years, in 2008, when Obama was running, the American people were awake and they were very angry with the Republicans. In 2010, they were still awake and they got very angry with the Democrats. And in 2012, we're still pretty angry, and we're angry with everybody now. The Democrats and the Republicans, the government is divided. Why is it considered that the United States is either the most democratic or not a particularly democratic country in the world? Go ahead.
Extremely low voter turnout.
The United States has got voter turnout that is in the bottom quarter of the world. So of people that are eligible to vote, or voters in general, really, we are lower than Iran, we are lower than Liechtenstein, we are lower than Russia, and you don't think about these kinds of countries as being these wonderful democracies. Why is it that the United States is considered the most democratic country in the world?
Because of all the changes.
Not because of the changes, something very specific. We may not turn out, but we have more elections than anybody else in the world. More places to be able to exercise our choice. And that's what most democratic is up there. Political culture, public opinion, and political socialization are basically just straight definitions. And we've basically covered these in the last few days. But political culture is really the idea that there are certain symbols, there are certain beliefs, there are certain values that all cultures have. And when you think about it, these things are lasting and they don't change. When you get into public opinion, instead of these broad symbols and beliefs, public opinion are really day-to-day issues. And while political culture is lasting and doesn't change very often, public opinion changes a hell of a lot of the time. So with this in mind, it's much more static. And again, it's a day-to-day kind of a thing. Political socialization is not what you believe, but it's actually where you get your beliefs from. And based on where we had stopped in class the other day, and this is for both of you, if you remember, the family is considered the dominant place where you get your political socialization, but that doesn't mean that you also don't get it from peers. And I think basically we had stopped with peers as we had gone through this. Now, if you think back on this, and red state versus blue state, be very quick with this. This is important. Red state and blue state, I gave you that quote from, I think it was like page 224 or something. And it's a really good quote to go back. No, it's not 224. Maybe it was 124. I had given you this quote, and this is a really, really good one. And it says here, talking about the United States, now America seems to be two countries. One is conservative, evangelical, small town, and living in the middle of the country. It votes Republican, the red states. The other is liberal, secular, urban, and living on both coasts. It votes Democratic, or the blue states. Conservatives hate gay and women's rights and Bill Clinton. Example, Fox News. Liberals hate big corporations, Iraq War and George Bush. Example, Michael Moore. Red states versus blue states. Liberals versus conservatives. Republicans versus Democrats. I've given you a number of different places to kind of get some answers on this. Please go back and take a look at I'm voting Republican, I'm voting Democrat. Please go back and take a look at this quote. Please go back and take a look at the video that's dealing with the belief quiz, because this really begins to break down what some of these differences are. And if you want a 10-point question, that's almost got to be one if I ask it that way. So be able to really explain this to me, because I've given you a lot of examples of issues and terms and quotes and things. So be careful with that. 14, what was the key with 14?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
We never-
14 is when you're old enough to be able to understand politics. Yeah, we did cover that one. Yeah,
just a
we
number.
did. I mentioned to you, let's throw out chapter 5. Chapter 6 are the videos, so you should have access to those. And we're just about out of time here, so let me go back to the articles in chapter 7. And I think I might have to add one or two from the other day. Do y'all remember the anthem? I know we covered this. Remember the anthem article? What was the anthem?
Translate this.
Whether or not the national anthem should be translated. Absolutely.